senior citizens. It's a despicable crime because it preys on a particularly vulnerable population and people, because of their stage in life, who are unable really to recover and therefore recover the losses, and frequently, therefore, this is catastrophic development in their lives. This is a high enforcement priority for me, and later today we're going to be hearing about some of the successes and strides we've been making. I'd like to welcome here today my very good friends, Judge Bill Webster's wife, Linda, as well as you local and state leaders who have been active in this area. Lieutenant Sims, Detective Swain, Mark Merkelbaum, Jim Probopoulos, and Attorney General Landry. We're going to be hearing from you leaders who've had to deal with victims of fraud, and we're interested in hearing your insights on this problem. And we're very honored to have the Websters with us, who are in a unique position to give us some insights. By the way, let me just say that this is Judge Webster's 95th birthday, so happy birthday, Judge. Thank you. And he's kind enough to spend time with us today to tell us about their experience with overseas fraudsters who tried to convince him and his wife that they had won the lottery. Well, they picked on the wrong people, because the Websters quickly got law enforcement involved, and those fraudsters are now behind bars. So I'm interested to hear from each of you your thoughts on this problem that we're facing today. Start maybe with you, Judge.
Thank you, General. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say about myself, but I'm a former United States Attorney, former judge, former director of the FBI, former director of CIA, so I've had some exposure to this. But you mentioned my big birthday, and that qualifies me as a senior. I know how they feel when they're caught in a difficult situation and don't know what to do. In our case, without going too much into the details of it, because Linda was more active in many respects than I am, the first call is always to congratulate you because you won something, and then you think, good, I can use that. Sort of money attached to it, but you need to give them something because of taxes, there's some other reason that sounds superficially legitimate. Anyway, what happens for older people when it doesn't materialize is they don't know what to do. And they generally, I'm generalizing, but older people are not interested in getting into a shooting contest with somebody who could be threatening to them. And Linda had that experience, and she got the full treatment as to what they might do to her if she gave her any kind of a hard time. So I'm very pleased that you, as Attorney General, have assembled some of the people to see what we can do to help make it easier, knowing what to do, knowing how to deal with it, and who to call, where to call, which is a good step for older people. That's the part where they get very shaky, and that there are friends who will have had good experience, and they'll get the backup. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Attorney General Barr, thank you for convening this very important discussion. I am not here as a former wife. I'm the current wife, and the vigilant one. And I'm here to support you in any way in terms of telling our story. And thank you.
My name is Jim Probopoulos, and I'm a senior Corps RSVP volunteer. And I want to first of all thank you for inviting me to attend this session and to share my experience and relate incidences that we've encountered in our work dealing with consumer complaints, but particularly with complaints by seniors dealing with fraud and scams. RSVP is a senior corps program funded by the Corporation for National and Community Services to recruit adults age 55 and older as volunteers who help solve community problems. And I'm a volunteer, so I put in what time I can at the Attorney General's office to review complaints and to work with both parties and try to come to resolutions. Throughout the country, there's thousands of us volunteers with RSVP working to, I'll say, help their peers. And again, at 55 and older may not sound old, but it isn't, because speaking from that being in the rearview mirror, it's an aging population, and there's more and more of us out there that are having to deal with the problems associated with people trying to make money off of their naivete and sometimes fear. Throughout the country, we have people that try to work to have people learn how to combat fraud. So not only do we do after the fact, but we're trying to help them to learn what tools they have at their disposal to prevent fraud. Some of us serve as gatekeepers to prevent homebound elders from becoming victims of fraud, and then to help individuals who may have become victimized by fraud. So we do it on the full spectrum, to try to prevent, but also to deal with it after the fact, which again becomes more problematic, as I'm sure you're all aware. We also help those who have been victimized to apply for benefits and other supportive services for which they may qualify. So again, there's lots of resources out there. It's hard to navigate all the possible options that people have depending on their specific situation and condition. So we try to bridge that gap and to help them to get the support they need. My role in the Attorney General's office as a volunteer is to review complaints that come in via the web, and then to work with both parties to try to negotiate a favorable outcome for both parties. Sometimes it's fairly simple and mundane, other times it's more complex and involved, and getting involved with international scams and schemes becomes even more challenging, and with limited resources and so much information, sometimes it's hard myself to navigate through the tools that are available for us to help out, and look forward to this session to enable us to at least bring back the message to the other RSB volunteers that we have in the office. There's 2 other folks like me that do the same type of work, and we also have interns that serve in the office to deal with complaints. So it's an ongoing effort, and one that we're, I'll say, very interested in and dedicated to, speaking for myself and for the other members, to give back to the community and to help out. So any questions you have after the session, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about more detail of some of the situations and some of the problems that I face. So thank you again for inviting me to be part of this group.
Thank you for coming, Jim. Next, we'll hear from Detective Skip Swain, Fresno County Sheriff's.
Thank you, Attorney General Barr, for being willing to bring this to light. I'm a detective with Fresno County Sheriff's, and I investigate elder abuse for the last little more than 8 years. I've been doing elder abuse investigations, and those investigations include not only financial abuse, but I also do physical abuse and caregiver neglect investigations. But the most of my investigations are, in fact, now financial abuse investigations, and those are growing. And we are seeing more and more of the outside abusers than just the family members. We're seeing those phone calls growing. We're seeing the international scams and schemes, and we're also seeing that tech fraud end of it now, especially with our seniors becoming more tech savvy or using technology more than they used to, but still being very trusting and being very vulnerable. So we are seeing an increase in those types of cases, and when they reach outside our jurisdiction, oftentimes we don't know what to do with that investigation or how to get that off the ground or where that goes, and so we don't want to just see it die on the vine. So bringing this to light now and trying to bridge that is going to be very helpful moving into the future for our, silver tsunami that we are experiencing.
Thanks, Skip. And next we'll hear from Lieutenant Don Sims from Ashland County Sheriff's.
Thank you, Attorney General Barr. I'm pleased to be here. This is an amazing experience. I'm a 27-year law enforcement veteran. I've been working with the seniors in Ashland County since 2004. We've recently started a pilot program with the U.S. Attorney General's Office of the Postal Service to try to combat, this what we're all here talking about today in Ashland County, and it's been amazing. We've done many things there trying to combat this problem, but the thing is, at a local level, like Skip talked about, is, that's just it. It's at a local level. Today's conversation about the national level and what to do and where to go is going to be very exciting to hear.
Thank you. Now Mark Berkelback.
I'm Mark Berkelback. I'm an evidence-driven investigation specialist with Adult Protective Services. That's a division of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. I started in 2000 as a field investigator. In 2007, I was promoted to what was called then exploitation subject matter expert. I investigate, I'm involved with, and provide consultation and direction on exploitation, elder financial exploitation, and it is a rapidly booming, growing problem. And I'm glad to be here, Mr. Attorney General.
Thank you. Thank you. I had my own episode involving fraud against seniors. I wasn't a victim, fortunately, but I was the lure. It turns out this was a couple of years ago, but it's continued for some time. But people took my official Justice Department portrait from 1992, so it was looking pretty good in 1992. And they put it up on Facebook and other online sites, and I was telling people as the former Attorney General that I had special access to federal grant money, and if they just sent some money, I could tell them how to get these major grants. And I started getting calls from people asking if the money was going to be forthcoming and things like that started me wondering what was going on. And a local television station identified the problem for me. I had it taken down, but it kept on popping up. And so over a long period of time, in fact, up to the time that I was announced as the new Attorney General, I would get occasional calls at my office from people around the country, and they were really heartbreaking calls. Some of them were obviously in desperate hope that this was not a scam, and they were asking, was the money going to be forthcoming and so forth. And when I explained the situation to them, they were obviously crushed. And then other people called, and they felt sort of embarrassed that they had been taken in. They felt it was their fault and so forth, but they would tell me stories that they had lost their life savings. I remember a woman from Georgia, they had lost $40,000, and it was their life savings, and she didn't expect me to do anything about it, she said, but she just wanted me to be aware this was happening, and I gave her advice, and she wanted to know who she should talk to about it, and I put her in touch with the local sheriff's office, but it finally stopped, so maybe these people didn't want to use the current Attorney General as their lure, but anyway, but it was, a really heart-rending story. So I'm happy that Attorney General Sessions identified this as a priority, and it's going to be a big priority for me, and I'd like to ratchet up our efforts. So these kinds of discussions and the session we're going to have later, where we're going to hear about some of the successes that our state and local partners and the Justice Department have had recently, we hope will help get the message out. And Attorney General Landry from Louisiana is going to be joining us at that news conference, as is Judge Webster, Linda Webster. So, thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Chris. We're going to what is the most important part of elder abuse after your investigation? Have you identified what you feel is the most important part of elder abuse?
Well, there's sort of countless schemes. Any fraud is by its very nature expansive. Any scheme that people can dream up to get money from their victims, constitute this fraud. And we have to be as imaginative in combating it as they are in coming up with these schemes.
And House Democrats are calling. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.